Hi, Frank Sudol here. I'll be drawing a picture of Jabba the Hutt from memory. I looked at a picture earlier and trying to visualize him in my mind. But the first tool I'll use is the regular circle brush, and the program is Krita. And what we'll do is start with our first layer, and then we'll just draw the lines. So the first thing I want to do is have opacity 100, and then the line about 20 should be okay. And I just want to get the eyes in first. I'm trying to visualize it. I think he usually sits on his right side and then faces left. So I'll just make this a little bit cartoony, but I think he's got kind of like oval type eyes. Anyway, it's a little rough, but I gotta go slow because this pen is a little bit of lag to it. So that line there I didn't really want in there, and it's a little thick on top for the line, so I'll just go over that briefly and clean it up a little before I keep going. So I'll try to make this somewhat quick. I don't want to spend all day on this, and I'm going to have him facing his eyes this way. I think he's got like snake eyes with his middle pupil, I think, almost like a snake. I think cats have eyes like that too, where they can narrow it in that shape. But let's see, I think he's got one pupil really high up or really low, and they're kind of like offset. Did I say pupil? I meant nostril. One nostril low, one nostril high. So I'll make that one the low one, and I'll have this one be the one higher up. And then that's just a rough idea. He's got this really big wide mouth, and I think it goes similar to this. It's a little rough, but it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm doing more of a cartoon version of Jabba, and that I'll clean up there. So let's get back to it. I think he's got like under eye bags, which are always fun to draw, in my opinion. So we could go like that, and then he's got a very basic forehead, nothing fancy, and I think I'm going to run out of room with this, so I'm going to cartoonize it, make it like a cartoon version of Jabba. And I kind of want to have his mouth open so he could stick out his tongue and slurp up some drool or whatever he's slurping up. So we'll do that and then close it in there. So with the pen, this is the easiest way to color in the mouth without having to go over the lines again, because if I use a paintbrush it won't cover all the edges. But I figured I'd do Jabba the Hutt as a fan drawing of of Star Wars Return of the Jedi, 1983 it came out, and that was definitely a really fun adventure movie in my opinion. So I think I'm getting the feel of what Jabba looks like. It's not going to be perfect, but and then I don't think he's got like a nose or anything, but I could add a little bit of accent to it. And he doesn't really have eyebrows or anything, so. But I will give him a little bit of a ledge to his eyes. This way he gives it a little more dimension. And then if I want, I could add a slight forehead there with forehead lines. And then I know he's got a big underbelly for his mouth. And he always has drool hanging down probably. So I'll add some of that. And it's always fun to draw. And then from the tongue itself, you could have a little bit of drool dripping down. Doesn't have to be anything too fancy. But I think that's the general idea. I think he's got like little bumps on his chin. And then he does have a couple tones to his color, so it's not just all tan or whatever brown color he's got there. So then I want to draw his arms. I think they overlap similar like this, and I think he's only got 3 fingers, so I'm just going to do that really quick. See the lag on this thing? Oh my god, it's pretty bad. And I remember I had the Jabba the Hutt action figure playset when I was a kid, and I remember his arms had like this weird looking, well, not weird, but unique looking texture to them, like lines on them. So he'll have those arms there. You can see the lag is just totally holding me back here. I usually don't have the screen full screen when I draw in Krita, so that's part of it. Plus I'm recording it, and this program only goes so fast. So alright, so that's the body of Jabba, and I want to accentuate his slug-like body. So what I want to be careful of is I'm visualizing how's this tail going to wrap. I'm going to have it go like a snake and just wrap upward. I'm not going to put that little crumb guy in here. I'll just have Jabba by himself. But see, it's like a snake, and that'll help me fit the whole tail in. Otherwise, if I had it all the way there, I'd run out of space. But you could see the body's definitely a lot smaller because I'm doing a cartoon version, and when you do that, you could have the head be bigger than the body. I did another version of Jabba a while ago, and it was just like a really fast cartoony version. I don't think it was very good, but it got the point across for just what I was trying to do really fast. So normally there would be like little lines in the droplets. Years ago, when I first started studying water drops to learn how to draw them, I remember they turned out pretty good at first. I was like, wow, I didn't think I could do that. And then once I learned how to do it, I applied it to a couple more projects, but then I kind of phased out a little bit. But I think he's got more of these like little bumps. See how I try to make it like a circular curve? Normally I would like flick the line really quick, but this is just so slow with the delay, the lag, that I have to kind of do this and go really slow with it. Otherwise it'll square everything off. See, that line wasn't the best line to put in there because it's parallel to this a little bit. But I think that's the general idea of Jabba. I like the face. I think I got the face pretty good. And then with this, you could just add this. This adds dimension to your drawing versus if you didn't add any of those lines. The tail is not quite perfect for what I'm going for, but it works for now, so we'll just proceed from there. And then we're just going to add some quick little lines here. Nothing too fancy here because this is all volume of his belly over here. But that's the general idea of Jabba the Hutt. And normally he would have like a frog in his hand or something like that. So we'll just put something there really quick. Nothing fancy. And then we'll draw the little frog face over there. I actually have some dwarf frogs, 4 of them, and they're doing pretty well. They have little tadpole babies every now and then. I'm trying to raise those and turn them into little froglets, but it takes a lot of luck and a lot of work, and the right food, the right temperature, the right conditions, and so on. But next thing I want to do is duplicate this layer. So let me pull this over here, go into here, and duplicate layer. The reason I do that is because I'm going to go one layer underneath, and then what I'll do is we're going to paint this in. So what I'll do here is get my paintbrush. Now I'll go back into the colors. This looks like a perfect Jabba color, and then we'll just press in there, and boom, we got the whole Jabba the Hutt painted in really quick. We could add some green highlights to it next chance I get. I think his tongue is similar to his body color, but let's see. I always felt he was more of a tannish color slug, and then only when I saw the action figures later on, years later, did I notice he did have like a greenish tinge to him. I know he's got reddish eyes, orange reddish eyes, which are pretty awesome. I remember I was always big into monsters, so the first time I saw Jabba the Hutt, I was like amazed how cool he was. It's like, wow, he's awesome. And I'm still a fan. I would like to see Jabba as he really is in the first movie, rather than anything really too exaggerated. Like in the Clone Wars, the animated series, I think they really exaggerated him way too much, to the point it doesn't even look like Jabba the Hutt. They lost the essence of his appearance. It's too exaggerated. Wow, that's weird. Why is that so dark when it's so light over here? Oh, okay, that's why. So I want to have this be a little bit brighter so his eyes really stand out. I'm surprised I let that other color go, but it'll work. So not quite orange, he's got more of a reddish eyes, but anyway, we're not going to worry too much about it. For his drool, I think I'll make like a yellow-green. That's always a fun drool color. And then for the frog, like a darker green should be good, or something like that. And then there we go. That should be alright. Let me just put that in there really quick. So there's a quick version, and what I'll do now is isolate. Now that I have all the basic painting done, see, if I left it like this and then animated it, you could do cell shading, cartoon, but we're not going to do that, so we're going to try to give it a little more detail. So the first thing I'll do is go back to my black and white colors, shades or tones if you want to call them that, and then we're going to reduce the opacity to like 50 or 40%, 0.4, with 1 being the maximum. And then we'll go back to our, oh, see, that was the paint tool. So before we get to that, we want to isolate Jabba the Hutt. And to do that, you could select outside of them and then just select invert, and that'll select him so it stays within the lines when you're painting. So now that I have that layer, I could just duplicate it, but look at this, there's no duplicate option over here. You actually have to go back over here and then duplicate this. So there we go, we duplicated that. This way I'll have like a backup. It's always good to have a backup for it, including saving, which I haven't done yet. But let's move on and let's get some shading going. So the light source I'm going to have on the left side, and what I'll do now is reduce the opacity to, let's say that 20%, and then we're going to come in here. Actually, I need higher opacity. 30% should be good. So here we are, we're hitting it now with the shading, and it's a little choppy, but here we go. So this lighter shade gives me more freedom to mess up a little bit, but we could go a little darker with it, but let's start with a lighter shade for now. So we're going to select this part and just shade that in really quick. See how it stays in the lines? If I didn't have that selected like that, it would have been a total mess right now. So his arm, that's going to be in shadow, and then we could do reflective light on the outer edge of that, and that'll give it a little more depth. But as far as the color of Jabba, we could get to that and just at the end. I think that'll be fine. And then we're just going to highlight his tail with some shadows, and then you could have like a shadow like that if you want, separate. And then just to show you where I'm heading with all this, I'm just going to fill this in right now, the darker tones. The line's way too thick right now for what I'm trying to do here, but I'm just trying to get the big layers completed for the shadow, and then come back in with the more finer details. Just get the main pieces just to start. So there we go, it's looking closer to what I envisioned. And then do a circle there, and this way it'll make it look like it's curving around that point. The mouth edge, you could keep that like that, and then just do some quick fill-ins here for these little lines. And then for this, you could do a little bit of that going on there, A little bit of shading for his under eyes, his bags under his eyes. As far as Jabba's age, I wonder how old he is. So we're going to highlight the side of his face, give it a little more, shade the side of his face. We're not highlighting it. So we're going to shade the side of his face, make it seem like it's further back behind the shadows, and then we'll continue on from there. So it's getting there. We do need to cover this part here, and then the drool I'll get to as well. But yeah, Star Wars Return of the Jedi, there was a scene right in the beginning where Luke enters the Jabba's palace after Leia in disguise entered it, and Chewie was surrendered, and then C-3PO was given as a gift along with R2-D2. And let's get the eyes and shaded in there while we're right here. And then Jabba the Hutt, he was speaking in a different language, so you couldn't really understand what he was saying, but they had subtitles so you could read along. And I thought his voice was so cool. He had that really deep Jabba voice. And see, this arm will be close to his torso here, so we'll not do too much with the shadows. If you wanted it further back, like the arm was further away, then you would extend the shadow further out from that arm, but we're not going to do that right now. So it's getting there, and what we'll do now is reduce the size of this, because that's way too big for finer details, and I do want to increase the opacity to 40. This will speed things up a little bit, but we're moving along now. We're trying to get this done within half hour or so. I had to go a little slower because of the clumsiness of drawing on this program. See the outline there? I'm not going to keep. I don't want to bring it down too far like that. But I think with the tongue, we'll just give it a lot of glaze, because it's going to be kind of drool all over it. And then for the shadow, we can have it extend out a little, so we'll increase the size of this shadow as though it's jetting forward a little bit, and then you could have the shadow there be a little more obvious. Now the light source is on the left, but you could vary it a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. But if I had a pencil in my hand, I think I'd have a lot more control here. This feels really slow and clumsy. But for the sake of not having to set up a camera over a piece of paper and do a live recording, this is definitely a nice option. So we're almost finished with this. There's not too much more I want to cover here. I got the gist of what I'm going for here with Jabba the Hutt, who's probably one of my favorite characters of Star Wars for his, just the way he looks. He's so cool. I think he's a really cool looking creature. I always love drawing monsters, so that was a big part of it. So one thing I did forget is that I could fan this brush out but I don't know. This'll do it. I think that'll fan it out, so we can give it a little more fading effect, almost like an airbrush. See, that's too dark now. Alright, so we'll just add a little bit extra in here and then we'll move on. Yeah, I should have been using this a little bit earlier. We're still on track though. And then for this, we'll just fill this in. Frog, I almost forgot to fill in the frog. But yeah, he pulls them out of his little aquarium and then he eats them while they're still alive. That's pretty harsh. Life eats life. That's the way the whole universe works. It's pretty sad, because if you think about it, you'll have like a little creature born, and then next thing you know, something's attacking it and eating it out in the wild, and even not in the wild. But that's the unfortunate way of nature, where it seems like sometimes there's no mercy in this world with some of the things that you see. Where if a little baby frog is born and Jabba reaches his arm in there, he just eats it while it's still alive. That little frog could have had a life, but the way of nature, it just allows life to eat life. That's pretty cruel. So it tells you, I think, a lot about, without anybody telling you anything about the way of the universe. It seems a little harsh. So anyway, we're going to switch to this and go with the highlights. We're going to reduce the opacity of this. There we go. We got a nice faded effect there. And then we're just going to try to highlight this really quick. The size is a little too big, and I'll add a little more strength to the white, so I don't have to be here all day, because I got limited time. And it's not quite like painting, because it's like a huge delay. So it is painting, but I have to be really patient. Alright, so we're almost finished. Another 10 minutes, I'd say. And then for this, I'll just go back in at the end and just give them some general highlights. But let's give them a little bit more size of reflection highlight over here, since this is jetting forward a little bit. That's not too bad. See, as the object jets forward, moves forward, that's where the highlight will find itself. As it goes further back, then you wouldn't want to highlight that, because that would not be the right position. So for this one, I'll just do that. It's getting there. Just reduce this a little bit and come in here with a little, there we go, that's what I was going for there. And a little shading on his nose to suggest that it's moving forward versus further back. Here you wouldn't want to put too much, and then here you could put a little bit more. But yeah, almost finished here. The tail, you definitely want to highlight the tip of the tail. and then the curve you could have a little bit on there, and then the edge over there. But yeah, Jabba the Hutt, he's like a crime lord, so he is like a real bad guy in the Star Wars series. So I wouldn't want to run into him. He's definitely a villain, and he doesn't have much mercy. He has like a pit, and inside the pit is a gigantic Rancor monster. That was awesome. When I first saw that as a kid, tiny kid, I saw this giant Rancor monster in the pit, and all the Gamorrean guards were looking into the pit, and one of them fell in there. What's going on with this color? It's not taken to it. And the big Rancor monster ate the Gamorrean guard, the giant pig guard that looked like a pig. But alright, so we're just going to come back in at the end with some really strong white highlights here, and we'll just what this will represent, if it would actually work, is his reflective skin, almost like a slimy coat. So we'll just switch pens back to that, and what is this? This is the wrong color. I forgot to switch to the white. Oh brother, what is that? So for some reason it's like a big blob. I got the pen too big. That's probably the problem. So around his nostril we could have some almost like there's like a liquid there when you have the little speckles like that, and they're really kind of tricky. They're where you want to put the highlights, but like if you ever look at a I guess a wet sidewalk, you could see the highlights will be these little white spots in the puddle or the dried puddle, and that definitely is a really unique effect. It's like there's no subtlety to it. It's just really bright white highlights of the strong reflection of the water showing off the light source, and that's why you get that really strong white little spots, because it's wet and it really centers at that point. But that's about it. We'll just come back in at the end and take a look and see what I can do. Otherwise, I think I'll just give it a really quick background here. But these little rounded globules, we'll just give a couple highlights here. Even though it's in shadow, you can still give it a little bit of a highlight. And then I'll probably come back in GIMP and fine-tune this, because this pen is really clumsy as hell in Krita. It's not Krita's fault, it's my computer. It can't handle too much. But let's see, I guess I could come in here really quick with this is called reflective lighting. I'm way off there. I'm going to come back in to another program, GIMP, and I'll finish it off there. But thanks for watching this. I'm just going to sign it, and then go from there. But yeah, that's Jabba the Hutt, fan drawing of Jabba from memory, and definitely a really fun character to draw. There's more to this that I have to finish, but that's good for now. And yeah, if you're a fan of Star Wars and want to see more Star Wars type drawings in my spare time, as a fan of the creatures and some of the characters and monsters, feel free to comment and give a like, and then subscribe if you like. I appreciate it. Thanks. And then let's see. Oh, and thanks to all the fans I have who watch my videos, and I really appreciate it. Thanks for all the comments and the support and feedback for my cartoons. Thank you. So here we'll go select inverse, and then we could do a new layer, but I'm just going to save the shadow for later. We're just going to assign it, and that'll be it. Hi, Frank Sudol here, and this is just the second part of this whole process of Jabba the Hutt. And what I'll do is just add a little more dimension and depth as quick as possible to really bring home the detail of the character in a fast way without overdoing it too much. So now that I have that layer, I'm just going to duplicate it. You could make those other layers invisible. I did make a quick backdrop using one of my old cartoon backgrounds, and I just blurred it, and this way it blends in with some sort of background for Jabba. So what we'll do here is just a quick pen, and we'll increase the opacity, and we could zoom in a lot easier on this program. That Critter program, I don't know, I'm just not that familiar with it like I am with GIMP, which is what this program is. So we'll come in here and just put some highlights in Jabba's eyes, and you could just put like little dots where you think the dots would go. Sometimes you could put them like right there to overlap both sections there, and then you could add a little shading to that if you want. I'll increase the size of the pen a little bit actually, so we'll just add a little shading to it. Normally this program is more responsive, but I'm going really light with that shading there, so let's make it a little more opaque, I think the word is for it, versus transparent. So then we'll just add some really brief highlights over here. Nothing too much, because you want the eye to recede back at the edges there, but not too far back as far as the look of it. But let's move back again and just do a quick, see how that really brought his eyes out. Let's move to there we go. Alright, so let's select Jabba the Hutt, and the way to do that is with the select tool. This will automatically select Jabba. So I want to just go over the highlights really fast. Hopefully this will be a little more easy compared to that other program, just to give it a little more depth. It's a little too light for me in terms of the contrast. So this looks like it's working according to what I'm going for. I want to be careful I don't get right up next to that highlight, because that'll defeat the purpose of this tan color in the middle there. That provides the intermediate shading, so it's not just one extreme to the other, but you have a gradual line to it. But yeah, that's what I was going for there. To get these other parts here, I'm just gonna lower the size of the line there, and then come back in here and put these here really quick. I didn't put any highlight reflections on the frog. I should probably go in and do that right now, but I have about 10 minutes before I have to complete this project and move along, so let's just finish it up right now. But yeah, that's more what I'm going for. There we go. So there's Jabba the Hutt, and he's sitting down versus standing up, since that's normally how he gets around. He is a slug, so he's able to crawl. He doesn't have to stand up. That's the advantage. So this hand looks a little flat. If you add more shadow to it, you can get more depth. Alright, that'll do it with the shadow. We could bring in some highlights really quick. I don't think it's necessary though. Nothing too fancy here. Alright, so let's go back in and get that frog really quick. There we go, just some highlights. You could really make them stand out, the highlights. That's fine, without having to worry about it. So there we go, there's Jabba the Hutt. And what we could do, there's a tool called dilate, and that will actually get rid of some of these lines. You gotta be careful though, because it could affect the look of it. There we go, I like that a little bit better. Yeah, it makes it more painterly. It reduces the size of those lines, but it could create a weird effect on the edges, so you got to be a little careful about that. Alright, so we're going to go into contrast really quick. You could do curves, but contrast is straightforward. This will really bring it out, but you got to be careful. You don't want to do it too much, otherwise it gets too, I think it's called rasterized, where it's almost posterized or whatever. But let's see how this works. The top part looks kind of what I'm going for. I could add texture to this. That would be cool. Like a texture to his skin. I think I could do that, but maybe I'll keep it simple. I don't know. I don't have my texture set up right now. I could always come back in after this. That looks good, I like that. And then I'll just add a couple quick highlights in here on his belly area to symbolize a wet surface. You could just do a random, usually in the highlights and sometimes off the highlights. There we go. So there's Jabba the Hutt, drawn for Halloween, which is just a few days away. Today's the 26th of and we'll just save that really quick. 26th of October 2020. Oh yeah, I gotta do the reflective lines, and what I'll do is instead of burn, I'll do a dodge, and this line should be thicker so it's easier to get it done. But you go on the edge there and it actually highlights. See how it's highlighting that? Isn't that awesome? See there, I already had that in there, but it creates this really cool edge effect where light is reflecting off the back of an object in shadow, and then it makes it really stand out. I first noticed that on, like, I used to buy some of the cartoon movies like The Lion King or Aladdin, and I looked at the cover and it had these really good reflective lines on the edge of all the cartoon characters. I said, wow, that's a really neat effect. So I started to learn how to do that. But you could add a little something over here if you want. The line's too thick now. But yeah, I'm almost out of time, so I'm just gonna wrap this up really quick. But there we go, and you can do a little reflective line in here. What happens is the light from the other surfaces actually gives off light in a way because it's reflecting light. And see how nice that reflective line is there to really bring out that tail. And then the tip of the tail. See, this is something I don't know how to do in that other program without manually drawing or painting. This dodge tool kind of does it for you. It just goes over all the lines for you. But it's a really neat effect. You gotta still draw the line, but it's a neat result, the way it does it for you. Like it's not a solid line, it has an opacity to it. But that's about it. There we go. We'll just get in there a little bit. We're just going to hit this really fast here with the highlight. I really should use my pen for that. Brush. I picked the brush, but it goes to the other tool. I don't get that. So we'll just do that really quick. This is exactly where you would want your reflective line on the edge of this slime. So we would go back to the reflective line and just try to get in there. It's too big, that line, so I'll shrink it down a little. But that really can bring out a droplet of water. Well, that's the idea, but I didn't quite get it there. You'd want to shade it a little bit more over here so you could appreciate the reflective line, but I ran out of time. Alright, that's it for now. But thanks for watching, and feel free to subscribe, comment, and like, and thanks for being a fan. And I'll zoom in a little bit. There we go. Jabba the Hutt. Thanks for watching. Bye. Okay, so the final phase is to show the layering that I had to do to complete this Jabba the Hutt fan picture. So the first layer, of course, was the cartoon cell shaded layer. Really basic, but it would make for a good cell shaded cartoon. And then you can move up a layer to a little more detail, a little bit of shading, and that would give you a few highlights and of course a few little speckles and shadows and stuff like that. Then we'll move on to the next layer where I add more shadows, and then of course we're starting to progress into the final drawing where I start adding different highlights and a little more detail to things, and then finally we're almost at the final phase. Here we added some texture for the green skin that I forgot to add earlier for his back, and I said, well, there's still more texture I want to put in, so that's what I did. And here's the final Jabba the Hutt. It's a little flattened out because of the texturing, but I felt the textures really added something to it. So there's the final piece right there, and I'd say it took about an hour and a half altogether, but I feel like I got the essence of Jabba for the most part. There are some things that I could smooth out for his skin, which doesn't look quite as smooth as it could be for his slug style that he is. He's a big slug. So that'll do it for now, and thanks for watching, and happy Halloween. If you liked the video, feel free to subscribe, comment, and give it a like. I appreciate it. Thanks for being a fan. Thanks for watching. Happy Halloween.